Yes.
But you made it happen. So that's what I want to know.
Yeah.
That was the genesis of that question.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I've willed it to happen. It wasn't going to happen like by itself. I think it was one of those, and for anybody listening, it's the really just stubborn ability to not quit is the only reason why I'm still here 5 years later. No matter what, even if the numbers are telling me that I'm failing, or the fact that people are giving me feedback that I'm like, oh, I really didn't want to hear that, but I needed to hear it. It's like the little things that could easily break you when you're already in this vulnerable stage of I'm trying something new, I'm putting myself out there. It's just saying, okay, I'm going to take this feedback and I'm going to make it better. And I'm just going to keep trying. And my big thing, my big philosophy is you got to keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. So take those and like, just keep going and keep pushing forward.
So what did that look like in the beginning for you?
Oh, we're getting philosophical. So we're in therapy now. Okay.
No, very practical. I want to know what you did and how often you did it.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things when I look back, I just turned into a sponge. At the core of everything that I was doing, I was always in research mode. So if I was going on a run, listening to a podcast, I was studying, like relentlessly studying. What are they doing? How is it formatted? What are they doing that I like? What do I not like? And I was listening to just a variety of other shows and taking a lot of mental notes. Sometimes I would, work out or listen to something, and then I would actually write notes down or put it in a Google Doc. Like I really loved how they segued from this segment into this other one, or how they interviewed the guest in this style. And I was constantly kind of just stealing ideas from other people. And at the end of the day, if I were to tell you everything that I'm doing today has been stolen from other people, you would say, no, it's you, Crystal. It's all you. It's original. And it's like, well, yeah, it's me telling my stories and telling everything. But if you break it all down fundamentally to what I'm actually creating, it's all been pieces that I've taken from what other people were doing that I liked. And then I just kind of made it my own. And that's really what I recommend, is just studying what other people are doing, become a student of your specific topic and the people that are doing it right. Because I think it's easy to look at someone like Joe Rogan and everyone's like, oh, I want a Joe Rogan size podcast. It's like, well, he's had the success that he's had because of, his authority before he got started. He had this popularity, and then he's very polarizing. Like there's so many reasons why his show is as big as it is. But at the end of the day, he is himself. Like no one can take that. Like no one, no matter what they do, can replicate exactly what he's done. And I think that everyone should think about their content that way, is you have to figure out what works for you. So, you said you're a working dad, you have, I'm sure, lots of priorities and goals within yourself, and then you're presenting this podcast into your schedule. I recommend that you find something that works within your schedule, because it won't work the other way around. If you force yourself to say, oh, I really don't have time for this, but I'm going to force it and I'm going to make it, I'm going to spend hours and hours in the studio and I'm going to rip myself away from my family. And I'm going to it's not going to work. Like it's going to be something that you dread and you're done. Like you're a few episodes in and you're just like, I'm not good at this. No one's interested. I quit. And like, to your point, of other people just not sticking with it, it's usually because they haven't really created something that works within the confines of what they can do. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it also maybe solves my problem, because I feel like I've already reached that point of, and I mean, I know you do a lot of YouTube stuff too, and we can talk about that as well. Cause for me, and maybe, I know YouTube's just more of a male, world than, trends more male than, even podcasting maybe, but that's where I spend more. I literally will listen to YouTube, like won't even watch, like I'll just turn it on my phone and play it.
Yeah.
That's how I'm more likely to consume stuff than I do listen to podcasts too. But so I spend a lot of time as a consumer of YouTube, and I have done the only place I've really produced any content to date is on YouTube, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, you hear people say like, well, if you're doing a podcast, you might as well do YouTube, and maybe you should do them both at the same time. And if you're more comfortable on YouTube, you should start there. Like, how do you filter all this?
Yeah.
How do you figure out, and then you have to figure out what exactly is my message, all that. Just so much, Crystal. How do you drill down and figure out what you're going to start with?
Well,
and like you said, get to a point where you can actually produce it and not, I feel like I have, 15 million ideas and I've got about 4 hours a week.
Yeah.
And I can, a little bit of my struggle here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, this is the question I get asked most often. I get asked this question like 10 times a week. I'm not joking you. I have people saying, how do you do this? Like, how do you do both of them? When is it time for me to do both? How should it work? And so I can tell you how it works for me. And then I'll tell you if I were starting all over, how I would do it today. So okay. I always tell people to get comfortable on one platform first. So if you're going to do YouTube, get started there. Like some people have this like really like it's a realistic like anxiety about video. I don't want to be on video. I don't want to show my face. I don't want to. And so if that is you, like if you're listening to this and you hear that, audio may be the place for you to start. For me, I read so much of my scripts in the very beginning. And so it didn't make sense for me to be on video because I don't have a teleprompter. I wasn't going to invest all this equipment. I'm like, I could buy a $20 microphone. You actually can't see it. It's just out of view. Oh, there it is. That microphone. Oh, that's right there. That was my $20 microphone. I got started. That's about how much money I had to invest in this podcast when I got started, because I was like, I can't buy a camera. I can't buy all this really fancy stuff. So I went the route of podcasting because it was inexpensive. I didn't have to be on camera. And I figured I could kind of stumble my way through it behind closed doors because people, they don't have to see me in any kind of way. So in that regard, it was easier for me to get started with podcasting, get my feet, like plant the foundation. And then I moved over to YouTube. Now, if I were starting today, right? So if you're just getting started, if anybody's listening is just getting started, I do think that YouTube will probably for the next few years still have better discoverability than podcasting. That's the unfortunate thing about podcast is there's just not the searchability for you to discover a brand new show that you love. Like it doesn't play the same games as the other algorithms and the other platforms. So it's a lot harder. So if your goal is to build an audience faster, get out in front of more people, I do recommend starting on YouTube and then stripping the audio and using it as a podcast. The only challenge with this is you can't be too visual first focused on your YouTube channel to where it doesn't make sense as an audio experience. That's where people, I think if they're like, oh, I'm going to share my screen and they're doing all this, it's like, well, I don't know what's on your screen. I'm on a jog. I'm driving down the street. I don't know what you're sharing. So, if you're comfortable on video, then I go the route of doing it, doing your podcast and videos on YouTube, because learning both platforms at the same time can actually help you. And I do know that YouTube is working on getting podcast up and running on their platform. So everything's kind of moving in that direction anyway.
I got you. So you were from the beginning, and maybe you still do, it doesn't sound like it, but you were scripting your podcast episodes.
Yeah.
Is that what I heard?
Yeah. I actually went back to more scripted episodes here recently, and it's for no other reason than I want to have almost all of my show notes that live on my website done by the time I go to do it, because I'll do it in phases. I kind of batch everything. So I batch plan my episodes, meaning I will have, I'll sit down once a quarter and I'll say, okay, I'm going to talk about this, this, and this.